Oh, aren't you impressed?
Meeting, I'm on the roll call.
Yeah, it's 2025, buddy, you know? Everybody, here we go. My microphone is on. Let's bring this meeting to order, please.
It syncs to my.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a lovely Easter holiday or which holiday that you do celebrate, like having a little time off. So I'd like to call this meeting of the Kane County the Whole to order. It is Tuesday, April 22nd, and it's according to our digital clock. It is 4:04. So clerk, could you please call the roll for us?
Allen. Arroyo. Bates.
Here.
Berman. He's online, but
It's online, but we'll call them secondly.
Doherty.
Doherty here.
Garcia. Garcia here. Gripe.
Right here.
Combs. I know she's here.
She's here.
Yes.
She's in a.
Thank you. Iqbal.
Iqbal present.
Juby.
Should be here.
Yes. Leonard. Lewis. I know she's here. Thank you. Molina.
Molina present.
I skipped you. Linder.
Linda here.
Penesis.
Penesis online.
Roth.
Roth is here.
Sanchez. Strathman. Sturgis.
Burgess is here.
Tarver. I know he's requested. Tepe.
Tepe online.
Williams. Young.
Here.
Pirog.
Here as well. All right, but we do not have a quorum at this point, but could you please, I'd like to admit Mr. Tepe, Mr. Doherty, Mr. Penesis, Mr. Iqbal, and is there anybody else online?
Let me check.
And Mr. Berman, are you there still?
No.
I don't
guess
see
not.
Dale. He may join us in a little bit.
No objection.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, you are welcome to fully participate in the meeting. Mr. Young, could you do the pledge?
Yes.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Cannot approve the minutes since we do not have a quorum in the room. We may go back to that if a quorum enters. I see no public comment. No public comment today. Got two in the room. Three in the room. Hold on. Four? No, wait a minute. Hold on.
We're up to 12.
I think we may have it.
No, that's 12.
Mr. Sanchez coming across the back here too.
Who just?
Oh, no, this is 13. Now we've got it. 2.
Sorry, I'm late. 3, 4, 5, 6,
13.
7,
We got it now with this Alan.
8, 9, 10,
Ellen.
11, 12, 13. I'm sorry? Okay, well, right
Okay.
now,
That's timing.
we have a request. We need to go into closed session. Session minutes. So may I have a motion, please, to go into closed session?
Eighth most.
Roth will second. Yep.
Chair, do we have quorum?
Yes, we do.
We do have a quorum.
We have 13 now.
We have 13.
Miss Young just, or Miss Allen just.
Okay.
Fine.
Just in the nick of time.
No,
Thank you, Ms. Allen, for being here. So, clerk, you need to call the roll to go into closed session. Get your candy.
Allen.
Allen, gotcha.
Bates.
It's here.
Berman. Doherty.
Doherty here.
Garcia. Garcia here. Gripe.
Right here.
Combs. Iqbal.
Iqbal present.
Juby.
Juby here.
Caius. Leonard. Lewis.
Who's here?
Linder.
Linda here.
Molina.
Molina present, or yes, I'm not sure what the roll call was.
Yes, to go into closed session.
Hennessis.
yes.
Hennessis, yes.
I got it.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges, Tarver, Pepe,
Deppie, yes.
Williams, Young, Huron.
Yes. Okay, we're going into closed session, please.
All right, everybody online joining us in the closed session, please accept your invites. Be aware we are live streaming. To those that are not coming in, any conversations you have will be live streaming while we are in closed session. I will let you know when we are together and ready to begin.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, is there anybody online that's hearing my voice that feels they should be in the closed session? All right, you are in open session.
We are back in open session. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Allen, Bates,
Bates here.
Berman. Sorry, Doherty, Garcia,
Garcia, yes.
Gripe,
Gripe here.
Gums,
here.
Iqbal,
Iqbal present.
Juby,
Should be here.
Caius, Lewis,
Who was here?
Linder,
Linder here.
Molina,
Molina present.
Genesis,
Genesis here.
Roth,
Roth here.
Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Strathman.
Here.
Sturgis. Tepe,
Deppie here.
Young,
Here.
Kirag.
Okay, thank you. But may I please have a
Chair.
motion?
Arroyo's here too.
Alex,
I'd move adoption of Exhibit A.
thank you. Thank you, sir. Is there
Roth, a second.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Any comments? None. Clerk, call the roll.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Bates,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Garcia,
Garcia, yes.
Gripe,
Gripe, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Juby,
GBI.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Linder,
Linder here.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Genesis,
Genesis, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Sturgis,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deppie, yes.
Young,
Yes.
Kirag.
Yeah. Yes.
here.
Allen, I.
Oh, Alan and Mr. Berman was admitted. Mr.
Yeah.
Berman, was that a yes? But
yes.
yes, very good. All right, very good.
Arroyo's been here.
Hold on, Alex, give us just a minute, please. All right, so, Mr. Arroyo, looks like he's in transit. Can we admit him to the meeting?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay, very good. Oh, okay. Alex, welcome.
Yeah, I got called into work, sorry.
That's fine. Just whatever you're doing, take your time, drive carefully.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Tarver indicated he's online. too.
Bill, are you there? I don't see the whole roll. See him?
Thank you.
Mr. Tarver, are you online as well?
Let's see.
Give a thumbs up, maybe?
He is online.
All right, well, when Bill is able to vocalize, yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to admit him, correct? He's probably listening right now. Okay,
Yes.
Bill, you're welcome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now let's go to the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of December 16th, 2024, February 13th, 2025, February 25th, 2025, and March 25th, 2025.
Bates moves.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. Second,
Berman.
Berman. Okay, thank you. If there's no discussion about these minutes or edits, clerk, call the roll.
Allen, Bates, I'm sorry, Arroyo. Mr. Arroyo. Okay, Bates,
Bates, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Garcia,
Garcia, yes.
Gripe,
Gripe, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Juby,
GBI.
Lewis,
Yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Genesis,
Genesis, yes.
Roth,
Roth, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tarver, Tepe,
Deppie, yes.
Young,
Yes.
Kirag.
Okay, very good. Those reports are now placed on file, so thank you, everybody. Kathleen, I'll bring you up right now, or Paul, to both of you, to present our next part of our agenda, and that is going to talk about the strategic plan.
I just wanted to introduce Paul Kofer, the grant administrator, as part of our department. He is assisting sort of as a project manager to facilitate the strategic planning.
Kathy, can you
process.
use your microphone?
Sorry about that. Paul Kofer,
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
he's our county grant administrator as part of the finance department, who has been acting as the project manager to facilitate the communications with Barry Dunn, who's been selected by the county board to conduct a strategic plan of the county. So what's on the agenda today is Michelle Kennedy from Barry Dunn is going to give an overview of the strategic planning process, what's going to happen as part of the strategic plan, and then if there's any questions later on after that.
Okay, very good. All right, Paul, the microphone is yours.
Yes, I believe Michelle should be here. But we'll
Yeah,
be,
she was online.
okay. We'll be beginning a 5-year strategic planning process. We're going to select an ad hoc committee to review the.
Paul, we'll need for you to get a little, I know,
We'll
it's,
need for you to get shorter,
Yeah,
Paul.
oh, yeah.
I have a better idea. Why don't you come and sit next to Mr. Searches, and that way that'll be easier for you with the microphone.
Test.
There you go.
Thank you. So yeah, we'll be beginning a 5-year strategic planning process. We will be forming an ad hoc committee of board members to oversee the major steps in that plan, to give oversight, make sure the plan stays on track, and to kind of help just move the entire process along.
And get closer to the mic. You're a rock star musician, right?
Blair, can you mute whoever is breathing into the microphone?
Terribly sorry, I'm not quite used to it yet.
Alex, mute yourself, man.
Me?
But we will be selecting a number of board members, or a number of board members will be selected for this ad hoc committee to keep the entire project on track and to kind of evaluate and give feedback to the full county board on major milestones of the process. It's going to involve a lot of information being gathered from county departments and offices, as well as a fair amount of from the community in a number of settings, including, probably surveys, traditional communication, town hall kind of meetings. I think we're in good hands with Barry Dunn. They'll be kind of shepherding us through this process. Eventually, we expect the process to take somewhere between 9 and 6 months, depending on how everything quite shakes out. And then that plan will be effective for the next 5 years. It'll identify high-level goals and strategies for how to carry those out.
And is Michelle there? Is she ready to go online?
I believe so, yeah.
She's online.
All
I'm
right.
here. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, we can. And can you?
You won't see the presentation of them.
Yes, we can certainly both hear and see you.
Great. Thank you, Madam
So
Chair.
welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and the board members. It's such a pleasure to be able to be here and provide you with this orientation for the process so that you are familiar with how this is going to unfold and that I can answer any questions that you have before we actually begin working on the strategic plan. So next slide, please. So just a short agenda for what I'm going to cover with you this afternoon. I'll do an introduction of myself and my teammates who I'm here solo today. But I want to say a few words about my teammates that will be on this project with me, as well as a little bit about our firm and what we're kind of bringing to the table in terms of expertise. Then I'm going to provide you an overview of strategic planning kind of generally, so everybody is on the same page with what this process is all about. We'll go through some not too minute details, but some details about the different project phases and the approach that we'll have for each one and some of the key tasks that are associated with those. And then I'll take questions from you all and we can have some discussion if that's desirable. Next slide. So the team of people that are shown here are the people that will be on the ground working on this project with you. I am the project manager and lead facilitator. What I bring to the table is almost 30 years of facilitating strategic planning processes for local governments. This is a passion area for me. I really, really enjoy this work. I get a lot of personal satisfaction out of working with local communities and their elected officials and leadership and staff to chart a course for the future and to help put them in a position where they can actually implement a plan to achieve that future. And it's something that I enjoy doing very much. I think it's getting close to 80 strategic plans that I've developed for local governments over the years. At Barry Dunn, I think we've done about 40 in the last 5 years, including plans for some of your neighbors, DuPage County, Lake County, the city of St. Charles, the city of Peoria. We're really proud of the DuPage County presentation, or I'm sorry, strategic plan. It recently won a NACO Edge Award. And I think we learned a lot from that process that will benefit you as well as a neighboring county. With me will be Karen Wichard. Karen comes to Barry Dunn and has been with us for a while now, out of county government. She served in a deputy administrator role for a county government in North Carolina. She has deep experience in county government. She and I facilitated many strategic planning projects together. She's wonderful to work with. I know that you will enjoy her. Maddie Powers Spencer also came to us out of local government. She served in a couple of city governments in Georgia. Maddie has worked on about 35 strategic plans with me at Barry Dunn and is just exceptionally talented as a facilitator and a research analyst. And Lucas Stykowski is a newer member of our team, but Lucas also comes from local government, and Lucas lives in the area. He lives in the greater Chicago metropolitan area. So he'll be our on the ground, in your neighborhood resource on this project. The other thing I'd like to note about Barry Dunn is we've been doing this work in public sector for a very long time. We also have developed in our local government practice group a team of over 100 professionals who most of whom come directly out of local government and who represent all the different functions that local governments serve and provide to the community. And so we have that bench of expertise that we could bring in if we needed. For example, if we needed a public safety expert, we have a former sheriff, we have a former police chief. We have that in pretty much every function of city and county government. So you're getting these team of people, those pictures that you see there are the people that you will see on site working directly with you. And then that whole bench behind us that we can pull in either front facing or just behind the scenes to help so that we can meet all of your needs. Next slide. So what is a strategic plan? This might seem obvious, but sometimes there's confusion about it. So it's good to start with a common understanding. So a strategic plan identifies the what. It defines the areas that you're going to prioritize and focus. It is meant to be a dynamic document. So we want it to be broad so that it can encompass 5 years, but then we get a little bit more specific and make it actionable in the objectives that we select. And sometimes those objectives are changed during the 5-year course of the plan, but we want the sort of, infrastructure around the plan to be evergreen for that 5-year period. It's also a great tool for transparency and accountability. Once we've identified your objectives and performance measures, you can report out to your community how you're making progress and where you're making progress. So you can use it as a way to communicate with the community about what the county is accomplishing. The how we get it done ends up in an implementation plan, which we will also be assisting you in developing. So the what is in the strategic plan, and the how, the details of how you're going to implement that plan will be in the implementation plan document. Next slide. So how does it help the county? Well, it starts with a North Star vision. And what we mean by North Star is it's a unifying focal point for long-term achievement. So sometimes your vision statement is longer than 5 years. It might be a 20-year vision, an ideal state that you're constantly striving to get to. So we want it to be aspirational, but we also want it to be clear and concrete enough so that your staff and stakeholders in the community know what you're working towards, and they can all row in the same direction. So we begin the whole process by really engaging the community, trying to help them have them help us figure out that vision. Then we work with you, using that information from the community to build that vision. And then we build everything that should go along with that vision. The other way it helps, once you have the vision and you have the goals that go along with the priorities and the goals that go along with it, the objectives and the performance measures, is that it will give you the direction to keep you on track and focused. Even if there are changes, setbacks, challenges, unanticipated events like a pandemic that can and do occur, your plan can provide that guidance during all of those changes. It also helps to ensure that your decisions are aligned with that overall vision that you have, so that you can be really good stewards of your resources. You can put those resources towards what the identified priorities are, and you can have a collective impact in your community. The thing that we are proud of in our strategic plans is that they are flexible and highly actionable. So we set those broad priorities and goals so your plan can stand the test of time over that 5-year period. But then we have clear time-bound objectives and clear performance measures and a regular cadence of reporting, status reporting built in so that your plan doesn't sit on a shelf. Next slide. So these are the common elements in a strategic plan. And we always put it in this house graphic to show how it all has to hold together in order for it to be a solid structure. So at the very base, we have the core values of the organization. And if you already have core values in place, we'll work with you and the county staff to refresh those and refine them for the current time. So on at the top of the house is that vision statement. It's the roof. It's what's going to give you the cover and the peak of where you're trying to get to. The mission statement is the undergirding of your roof, and the mission statement is your organizational purpose. It's like, why do you exist? Why does the county of Kane exist, and what does it do? And then within that, we have usually somewhere between 4 and 6 strategic priorities that we help you identify. So you keep focused. If you have too many priorities in your plan, you won't make good progress on any of them because your energy and your resources will be too dispersed. So somewhere between 4 and 6 is common for our clients. Then we attach a long-term goal statement to each of those priority areas that defines what success looks like. So if one of your priorities was robust infrastructure, we'd have a goal statement that describes, well, if we have robust infrastructure in Kane County, what does that look like? What specifically does that look like? And then we have objectives that will help drive towards that goal and help you to focus on that particular strategic priority. And the number of objectives varies depending on the priority, but we try to identify those things that can be accomplished in the 5-year period in order to allow you to make progress in that priority area. And then we identify outcomes and performance measures. So when we're done with this objective, what's the outcome? And then how are we going to measure our progress along the way? So those are the elements of a strategic plan, and they are aligned with GFOA, the Government Financial Officers Association's standard and best practices for a strategic plan as it would tie to your budget. So if you want to do this right and be in alignment with these are the elements that you have to have. Next slide.
Could you repeat the terms for that anachronism, GOFA, Government Officers?
Yeah, it's the Government Finance Officers Association.
Thank you.
So there are some roles that different folks play in the strategic planning process. And the Kane County community is really important. We do broad stakeholder engagement as part of our process. And I'll share a more detailed slide with you that gives examples of what that looks like. But the main thing we're looking for from the community is to give us insights on that long-term vision. Most of the time, community members don't have enough understanding to help us identify objectives, but they can help us identify the overall strategic direction. So we give them, questions to focus on, like, What would you like to see 5 years from now or 10 years from now? What would you like to have be the same? What would you like to have be different in your county? We gather that input and then we put it together with a lot of other information that we call an environmental scan that brings in data from a lot of different sources, including census data, economic development data, data we can get from you, data we can go out ourselves and get, as well as a whole bunch of other data points from interviews that we will conduct, and put it together in what we call an environmental scan, which will serve as the basis for your work as a county board. So using all of that input, we will work with you to develop the mission, vision, and values. And then you will inform what those high-level strategic priorities, goals, and outcomes are. So we do that work with you first, and then we go to work with the county staff, and they take everything that you do as brainstorming as the beginning point, and they refine that work. They then develop specific objectives and performance measures that will allow them to execute on that strategic direction that you define. So those are the key roles of the different stakeholders in the process. Next slide. So this slide shows some of the engagement strategies that we typically use. We have some things that we try to achieve with engagement. We first and foremost, we try to meet people where they are. And what that means is we try to provide a lot of different channels and ways for people to contribute to the process. So we like to typically we do an employee survey that's focused on the vision of the organization and the strategic priorities. We will conduct focus groups and interviews with staff in the county, leadership and staff in the county, as well as you as county board members, and external community stakeholders. And we work with the steering committee at the very beginning to identify who those stakeholders need to be, right? The groups of stakeholders, the individual stakeholders. We also do public meetings. We usually call them community forums, where members of the community are just invited in. We try to help you to promote it broadly. We used to get 200 and 300 participants at these things. Since the pandemic, it's really changed. They're usually somewhere between 15 and 50 participants, but it's highly interactive. It gives people in the community an opportunity to talk with each other and brainstorm together. It's highly interactive. It's fun. We like to hold those over the lunch hour and the evening hours so people who work can participate. We like to do them in welcoming venues and gathering spaces that people are they're comfortable coming to. We also offer what we call meeting in a box that allows a stakeholder group, for example, a homeowners association, to facilitate a meeting at their, facilitate a visioning discussion at one of their already scheduled meetings. We also use a social engagement platform called Social Pinpoint. We started using this during the pandemic when it was harder to meet with people in person, and it's turned out to be a really great tool. It's kind of neat because it's passive, but it's easy to access. So you we'll create and customize your social pinpoint presence. The link lives on your website, and we can design it specifically to you with all of your branding. And then people can access it from their smartphone. They can access it from a laptop. They can just get information from it. They can contribute ideas. There's a whole bunch of different functionality that we can activate to make it work for you. And then we try to use any existing connections and engagement methods that you already have to either get the word out about the opportunities to participate or to create a channel for participation. Next slide. So from all of that, the sources that end up informing the strategic planning process and then go into that environmental scan that I spoke about earlier, it's the community and employee input, which includes the individual and group interviews, any written responses they provide, and at least 3 community forums. The Social Pinpoint engagement platform and everything that goes on there, which is usually a survey, a poll, an ideas wall, and a discussion board. Any county and regional demographic and economic data that we can pull together that will help us understand trends and what's happening in terms of projected growth and changes in the demographics and population in your community. Any current plans you have, your budget documents, your policy documents, we pull all of that together into a highly visual presentation. It's in the form of a slide deck that's very accessible, that's interesting to look at, that has interesting and informative data points. And that serves as the basis for the county board and the staff plan development sessions. Next slide. So here's kind of the phases of the project and kind of the timeline we're anticipating for each phase. So we'll spend some time in project initiation and management. And what is involved in that is making sure that we put together a detailed schedule so everybody knows what's happening when, and we can get things on people's calendars because we all know how busy everybody is. And so if we get that schedule put together at the beginning, we can start calendaring things out and we can ensure better participation in everything that we're doing. The other thing we do in that project initiation stage is get the steering committee together, get them oriented, set up a regular cadence of project management meetings that go for the whole duration of the project. We also use that phase to start thinking about and defining what those stakeholders, individual stakeholders and stakeholder groups are, and how we're going to reach out to them and engage them in the strategic planning process. By the time that phase is done, we're ready to dig into the community engagement and strategic analysis phase. And that includes all of that engagement that I showed you in the slide that had the wheel on it, as well as the creation of the environmental scan. And that is typically about a three-month long process. Sometimes it runs a little bit longer than that, depending on the lead time that we need to have for promoting all of those activities. But we are able to tease that out in the project schedule at the beginning. Once all that analysis has been done, we move into the actual plan development work. This is also about a 3-month long process where we cycle through, starting with you as the elected body, and then moving through to involve department leadership and then staff, and refining and refining and refining until we get that document into a good draft that we can bring back to you as a draft for a work session where you're not approving anything that you haven't seen or had a chance to really understand, comment on, and make adjustments to. And then we will work to align the strategic plan with your budget to make sure that the two are married up. And then we'll bring the final plan back to you for adoption. And it will be in a beautifully designed form. I'll show you an example of that in a moment. And then we'll move into implementation planning. So we have to have the strategic plan finished and adopted before it makes much sense for us to spend any time on implementation planning. That's where we get into the nitty-gritty details of who's going to do what, where are the resources assigned, what's the timeline, what are the action steps we have to take to start making progress on that objective. So the real detailed work that we'll put together teams of folks made up from the county departments to build that implementation plan. Next slide. So this just lists out some of the key project activities that I've already talked about in the previous slides. We're really very concerned with and supportive of making sure that you can take action on this plan. So that implementation phase is really, really important. And we start thinking about implementation at the very beginning of the project so that we're building the template for your implementation plan early so we can start laying the expectations of what that's going to look like and how your departments are going to need to be involved so they can execute on the plan. Next slide. So this is an example of final strategic plan. We have many of these. I happened to pull DuPage because they're your neighbor. And they were really pleased with the outcome of their process. It's a 5-year plan. You can see that it's branded with their things that are unique to their organization and community. It shows, the mission, vision, and they called them guiding principles, core values. Those terms are often used interchangeably. We helped them develop that from scratch. Their vision and mission was so old that it didn't even apply anymore, and they felt the same way about their core values. So we refreshed all of that. And we like to, in the plan, describe why the strategic plan is important, because this is a public-facing document and it helps your community to understand why the county even engaged in the process in the first place. Next slide. Then we have a little plan at a glance that shows the priority areas, and you can see they have 6. They ended up with 6 priority areas: mobility, community well-being, fiscal responsibility, thriving economy, safe community, and environmental stewardship. And then we have a build out of each strategic priority using usually this format. So there'll be the priority with the goal statement that I described earlier. Under this one, they have 5 objectives. On some of your strategic priorities might have 8 objectives or 10 objectives. And then we have performance measures laid out there. We have milestone measures, we have output measures, and we have outcome measures. So that is a sample. It's a much larger document than that, but that's a sample of what a polished, finished plan will look like when we get to that final stage. Next slide. So that was the orientation I had for you. I'm happy to entertain questions, answer any questions that you have, lead in some discussion. Let me know how I can help.
Yes, Mr. Roth.
Mr. Roth here. Could we get copies of the DuPage, and what was the other county in Illinois that you said?
Lake County.
All right. And then also St. Charles.
Yes,
Or just give
absolutely.
us the links and we can download them. We don't need to have paper.
Yeah, absolutely. Who should I send those to?
How about Kathleen? Or Paul? I'm sorry,
can
of
go to
course,
me.
Paul.
I'll send them to Paul and he can forward them on.
And then
So it
it'll
was
be,
DuPage, Lake, and St. Charles.
yes.
Okay.
Very good. Is that it?
One other question, it's a subsection of our board. What number is a recommended, a good number of board members? It shouldn't be 24, I would expect,
I'm
right?
sorry, what?
Well, there's going to be members of the board assigned to this, right?
Correct.
So I guess my question is, what's the recommended number? It shouldn't be 24.
No. And I think that, as Paul mentioned, I think the steering committee is going to be made up of some board members, some department leaders, and maybe some key staff. Am I
You
reflecting
mentioned
that
that, yeah, at the
correctly?
beginning, but you didn't give a number.
Yeah, so it can vary. We've worked with steering committees as small as like 6 or 7 members up to steering committees about 15. And 15 is pushing it for the total size of the steering committee. 10 or 12 is a more comfortable number. So, it would be nice to have an equal number of board, department director, and staff participation. I don't think you're going to have any community members participating on your steering committee. Some local governments like to do that, but I don't think that you're planning to do that.
Okay, so to clarify, you were saying the board should be 1/3 of that steering committee?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Mr. Surges.
Couple of questions and comments. Madam Chair, did we mention when our last strategic plan was? I think
It was
2006, so we're a little stale. We find ourselves, Michelle, in a unique situation in that for the first time in a very long time, we have an uphill battle on some budget constraints.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, there's been some sharp criticism, like, why are you guys doing this when you don't have the money to spend? On the other hand, I don't understand how you don't do this, because in my opinion,
Exactly.
this is the document that helps you focus those resources, and whether that's to reduce the scope that you're trying to achieve, or get back to your core. and I just want to make sure that in communication with you, that philosophically, that's the same mentality.
Yes. So I really appreciate your comments and you bringing this up. This came up in our oral interview. I would like to start responding to what you're saying. We have a lot of awareness around this, and I would say about a third of our clients are experiencing budget challenges. In fact, it was because of a serious fiscal challenge that one of our clients in Oregon chose to do a strategic plan, because they knew they were going to need to focus. And frankly, they made fiscal sustainability one of their strategic priorities. So this is not unfamiliar territory to us at all. I can tell you, in the 30 years I've consulted with local governments, I've run into this frequently. I live in Oregon and have served many of the communities in Oregon. We have fundamental structural issues for local government budgeting in Oregon. And so I'm very familiar with this landscape. So let me add more to that by saying the approach is, particularly in that situation, is to recognize, as you said, those things that you might already have underway, but that you want to reflect as core areas of focus and need in your strategic plan, so they're documented and you stay focused on those things, number one. Number two, it's a recognition of not everything. So, and in addition to that, not everything that goes into a strategic plan is going to be new, and it shouldn't be. Next, it's always the case that some new things go into the plan, but they don't necessarily require a significant investment of resources, or any investment of resources at all, aside from already existing staff time. Sometimes the staff time gets repurposed to something, or it's refocused in a different way. And then the things that are going to require investment, if you want them in your plan because you want to focus on them, you start to build the runway that you need in order to focus on some of those more long-term things that are fiscal challenges, or that are needs that are larger and that are going to take more than 5 years to implement, but they're reflected in your plan, and you're starting the steps that are needed in order to bring focus to those areas of gigantic fiscal outlay, if you will, or need to plan for.
Michelle, I appreciate your response. For me, I was part of the committee that cast a vote, and we ultimately wound up with you. And the biggest question I had, the biggest concern I had, was balancing the resources, the finite resources that we have that are stretched versus the goals, and making sure that the firm that we chose, in this case, Barry Dunn, was, to answer our critics, sensitive to exactly what we have, and that this is integral in moving forward. And so I just thank you.
You're very welcome. And we were asked it in the oral interview. I really appreciate the question. It's an important question for many local governments that want to have a plan and have that same concern that you expressed. I would just also like to say that Karen Witchard, like I've been consulting for almost 30 years. I come out of government, but I've been on the consulting side for a lot. I know how to facilitate these processes and make them successful. Karen is more recent to consulting, and she's coming straight out of having budget responsibility for a relatively large county government in North Carolina. So, you're going to have in the trenches finance person on our team who's going to be, very focused on that as well.
Very good. Ms. Bates,
I
then Mr. Sanchez.
I am looking at the Lake.
Microphone, please.
Microphone.
Thank you. Mavis Bates speaking. I'm looking at the Lake County plan, and it looks to me like it's 13 pages long and very large print. Our former strategic plan was 116 pages long and 29 pages long and very fine print. So I'm hoping we'll get more detailed into more detail than this Lake County plan that I'm looking at. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong one, but
Well, so Board Member Bates, no, that is the strategic plan. Strategic plans are meant to be high level. And you might recall at the very beginning, I talked about the difference between a strategic plan and an implementation plan. So what we do is we separate them out. We do not include that level of detail in the strategic plan document in recognition that it's a public facing document. And the community is not going to read a 116-page document. And part of this plan is for an external audience of people that would never touch, most of whom would never touch a document that long. So some of the detail that was in your 116-page plan, which I haven't looked at in depth yet, it will be in that implementation plan. And you will be able to see that and have access to that.
are there any examples of so if I say Google Lake County implementation plan?
It's not a public facing document. They keep that implementation plan internal. If you would like to see an example of one, happy to provide that to you. We do it on almost every engagement that we do.
Can you send that to Paul? And
Yep.
he can send it out to everybody? Thank you.
Yep, I'll send you an example of one from a county government that we just completed recently.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Yes.
Very good question, and thank you for that. Yes.
Jared Sanchez here. As far as the steering committee goes, I know it'll be composed of board members, staff, and maybe some others. What do you see as the general scope of that committee and the kind of regularity that it may have? You know, will it be more active at certain times, less active at others?
Yeah, we're working on the charter for that committee right now. I sent Paul a draft of what we've used for some of our other clients that have chosen to have steering committees in the way that you're thinking about it. The steering committee's role is really to help guide the project, right? Not the day-to-day details that Paul and I will be working on as the project management group and others of our team members, but the group that kind of guides the overall process that we go to for input and decisions. We will absolutely be conducting a full-blown development process with the entire board. And so all board members will have a chance to participate, but that steering committee it really is in the word steering. They're going to guide the overall process. They're going to approve the project schedule. They're going to approve our approach. They're going to give us input on the stakeholders. They're going to approve our environmental scan that we're going to use to drive the whole plan development process. So the people on that, we won't overburden them, but they will be involved in the decision-making and the review of things that Barry Dunn produces.
And then I guess this is a question for Paul. I assume this is going to be an Open Meetings Act compliant steering committee?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course it would be. Mr. Greig?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions. Thank you very much, Michelle. I'm curious why the GFOA is kind of, if I heard you right, you said the plan must align with their guidelines.
It doesn't have to. It's if you want sorry to interrupt you, but I'll just get to the chase. Some
Please.
of our clients want to get the award that GFOA gives out for their budget. And so they want that extra recognition that their strategic plan aligns with their budget. That's not important to every client, but because it's important to a lot of them, we've just aligned with that. And those articulated best practices by GFOA are the way in which I have been conducting strategic planning for almost 30 years. So all I'm trying to say is that they line up and that those do really reflect the best practice for what a strategic plan should ultimately look like and what elements it should include.
Okay, thank you. Well, I hope the results will speak for themselves, of course, but I'm also curious about not the number of people that will be involved in the process, but I'm thinking about staff members, department heads, people like that. Who chooses them?
So another great question. So as part of our regular approach, we will want to conduct, or at least offer, you don't have to take us up on this, but we like to talk to every board member. So offering up a 30-minute opportunity where we'll give you some prepared questions in advance, that things we want to talk about, topics we want to discuss with you to get your input before we even start plan development. Those themes will go into our environmental scan. We do typically do either one-on-one or group interviews with department directors. We leave that up to our clients to tell us if it's better for us to come to an already existing meeting that they have and they would benefit from having the collaboration, or if there's a preference for us to interview them individually, we will do that also. When it comes to staff, we give them, sort of two ways to participate. We like to do focus groups and hope to get representation from every department in the county. We really prefer that they be self-select. People aren't generally excited when they're voluntold to do things. And so we like to open it up, say we have this many slots, allow people to self-select. And then if we don't get good representation from every department, we ask department heads or managers and supervisors to step in and see if they can encourage and recruit a few more people from their department to participate. We also typically do an employee survey. It's not broader than the focus on identifying, elements for the vision and the strategic priorities and things like that. We don't go into, aspects of your operations. It's very focused on the strategic plan. So it's short and it's easy for them to take. I'm sorry, I don't think I'm answering all of your question. Can you repeat it?
It pertain mostly to who would choose
Yep.
the people, like the department heads or whatever.
Yeah, so we would do all of the department heads, right? That would be our recommendation. We like staff to be able to self-select. And then when it comes to the other stakeholders, any community stakeholders. So for example, we would anticipate interviewing mayors in your communities. We would anticipate interviewing town or village managers. We would anticipate getting to lots of different stakeholder groups, like maybe doing a couple focus groups with the business community, K through 12 education, youth, seniors. We'll come up with that stakeholder list early in the project during that project initiation phase. The steering committee will have great input to provide in terms of deciding what that list should look like. And if requested, that list can be and has been in other counties shared with the board so they can review it in advance and make sure that we haven't left anybody out.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Yes, Ms. Garcia.
This is Sonia Garcia. Michelle, I just have a question. I know that you want to go ahead and get really involved with the community and hear their feedback. It's essential for you. Talking about the Spanish speaking, do you guys offer that? I know that especially sometimes the Hispanics are afraid to go to focus groups and they don't participate that much. What is your approach?
Yep. So let me tell you a couple of different ways that we've handled it. And again, all of this we have our sort of approach, and then we customize it to every single client because every client has slightly different needs. And so we do have some staff that are Spanish speaking that also have facilitation skills that that could show up. Availability sometimes, because they work all over the country, is challenging in terms of when the event is scheduled. And so if not, we can work with you to identify a local resource that we can contract with to bring in. We have also worked directly with the organizations in your community that serve those populations to, number one, host a focus group with members of that community, and also to have one of their team members there to do the translating. So there's a whole different variety of ways that we've done it in different communities, but we're very committed into making sure that we can have the participation of the whole community and make sure our process is open and is allowing of people from all the demographics in your community to participate.
Thank you.
Okay, very, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Michelle Gums here. Just want to round this out. When we're, I guess, looking for your guidance and hearing what your responses were before on, how the board chooses the standing committees that are going to be able to help you the most to facilitate this the most appropriately. I think I heard that step one is that you'll be doing 30-minute interviews with all board members. That would be step one. Is that accurate?
Well, that will be step one in the engagement. So we'll have some project setup to do, creating the project schedule and building those interview questions that we want to ask. So that project initiation phase that's relatively brief will come first. And then the first thing that we do after that is interview the board members.
Okay, so I think so, just to be clear. So we're going to start there and look for your guidance after that. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Very good. Yes, yes, sir.
Michelle, I'm sure you're aware, since you've done other Illinois counties, of the distinction we have between county departments and the elected officials.
Yep.
And am I correct in assuming that this plan is only going to be addressing the board and those departments that we have ultimate control over?
Good question.
We ignoring the
So
elected
I-
officials?
If
It's a
I
good-
may, so it would not consider the sheriff's office, state's attorney's office, treasurer's office.
I will tell you that many county governments are structured that way. And in the case of Lake County, who has been a client of mine since 2007, their elected officials fully participate. They are invited and they fully participate. And that's true in other county governments that we've served and are serving. Lancaster County, Nebraska is another one where their elected officials participated in the process. I know that's not true everywhere. That's kind of up to you to decide how you want to handle that. But we've had success in getting those elected officials to participate in the process, and opening it up to them and not making an assumption that they don't want to participate.
Thank you, Mr. Linder. That's an exceptionally good question. With that, when you were talking about putting together the steering committee, Michelle, how would that function? That would they also then be interviewed, the elected officials as well as their potential staff? And then based on your determination would be selected, be part of the steering committee?
Can you repeat that?
All right, so you mentioned that you're going to provide an interview for each one of our 24 board members.
Yes.
And after that process is done, you will do the same with our department heads. Will you do a similar exercise with our other elected officials?
If you want them to participate in the process and they're willing, absolutely.
All right, well, we'll have to talk offline on that to be able to develop that process. Certainly, we cannot vote at this, but I think there may be a willingness for our board to consider that opportunity to ask them. I think it'd be very good. I would feel sad if they were eliminated personally. But that would be up to the determination of both the elected officials as well as this board.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly don't have to participate. You don't have any ability to compel them to participate. But we've had really good success in some counties getting them to come to the table and fully participate in the process. It has happened consistently at Lake County since 2007.
Okay, good. All right, hold on, Michelle. Is there somebody who has a question who hasn't raised their hand yet? Sure. Yes, Mr. Young.
Hi, David Young. So Michelle, this is David Young. As you're going through this plan and getting input from several people and you're creating this plan for the county, is there going to be, I guess, periodic reports to the board, possibly reported by the ad hoc committee that's going to be created? And the reason I ask that, all of a sudden December comes around and we have this strategic plan for the next 5 years in front of us, and that's the first time some of us are seeing it. That's one thing I don't want to happen. All of a sudden, for those of us that aren't involved with that ad hoc committee and don't go to every single board meeting of every single committee meeting, that this be reported at the maybe at one of these meetings or at the King County Board meeting, so that we get reports on this is what this is what we want to accomplish, financial responsibility, da 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 da. That's a request I'm making.
Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly provide progress reports that the steering committee, members of the board who are on the steering committee could report out in your board meetings. You will be involved in the entire board will be involved in the early plan development work. So you're going to know, you're not going to be surprised when you get the draft, because you will have identified the vision, the strategic priorities, and the outcomes and goals. That's going to all be driven by your work. So, you know, we refine it a bit when we do our plan development session with the department directors. If you want to see that in draft form before the whole plan draft comes to you, we can absolutely provide you with that. Typically, our elected bodies that we work with, they participate in the process, they remember their work when they like to see that first draft with everything pulled together, because if we come in and we share performance, we share objectives with you and they're not refined yet, it's of little value. So I think what it is finding the right milestones to progress report to you, and the right milestones to share any sort of parts of the plan that would make sense for you to see before we bring you a draft. And then I would say when you're getting that draft, it is not a finished product. You are not having handed to you that final product that you saw, the example of DuPage County that I sent you. That's not what you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at a Word document draft that's got some decision points in it for you. And you will recognize the mission, vision, values, strategic priorities, and goals. What you won't have seen in detail are the objectives and the performance measures. And that's where, you know, you get to thread the needle, if you will. And we actually do a formal work session with you where we walk you through the draft, and you give us comments and you ask questions and you request adjustments, so that you're comfortable with your input. And then all of that gets built into that final beautiful document at the very end of the process with all of your input incorporated. So that's kind of a little bit more detail on how that typically works, but we'd be happy to work with the steering committee on how to do regular communication and progress reporting with the board, so that you feel you're staying informed throughout the process.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Yes, Ms. Gumbs.
I just have a really quick question. Michelle, can we get your contact information emailed to us?
Absolutely. I'll put that in with, I'm sending 3 links to county strategic plan, well, 2 county and 1 local municipality strategic plan, plus an example of an implementation plan. And then Paul can just include my email information in there.
And is there any way specifically you would like us to contact you? Because I think from my perspective, it would be nice to see what all the questions are being asked, so that we can become familiar, very much in like that communication process that you were mentioning, that we can have a full picture of what the board is thinking as we go through this process. Or do you prefer individual, which works best for you?
So I'm happy if you have questions or thoughts between now and when we actually sit down with you for your one-on-one interviews, they'll be virtual. They're much easier to schedule.
Oh, absolutely. No,
Yeah.
that for sure.
But
That for sure.
if you have questions or something, an insight or something you'd like to share in between now and when we sit down with you for those one-on-ones, by all means, just email me and
Okay.
I'll be responsive to that.
Okay, very good.
We do prefer to do the interviews individually and then integrate. What we do is we look at the themes that come out from all 24 of you, for example, and we integrate that with the data that we gather from the department directors and from other community members into that environmental scan. But we'd be happy to share with you the themes that the board
themes,
specifically
yes.
identified, right?
Well, global is what I'm referring to.
Yes, we can absolutely share the data in that way. And then we'll also integrate it all together into some very broad themes using all of the input, but we can absolutely show you what the 24-member board told us in
That's
terms of those
wonderful.
global themes.
Oh, very exciting. Yes.
I have two questions. One of my visions for this strategic plan is that it will integrate and incorporate other strategic plans that we already have.
Yep.
We have
absolutely.
a climate action implementation
Yep.
plan, a public health strategic plan, I believe. Cheryl, you have a public health. We also have our 2040 plan. So how, rather than, putting them in the appendix or something, will they be incorporated into?
We also have a
how will they
capital
be
plan.
Capital plan, yeah, the big plan.
Absolutely. And
Is there a way those will be integrated?
yeah. If you looked at probably 90% of the plans that we've developed for clients over the last 5 years, in every single one of them, you will find another plan referenced. So sometimes it'll be in an objective. So complete X, Y, or Z out of the climate action plan. Sometimes it will be in the form of a performance measure around that. So you will see those other plans integrated throughout the strategic planning document. It doesn't mean that we're trying to smash it all together, but we're trying to have the things that are in those plans that need to happen over the next 5 years, over the cycle of this plan, show up within those identified strategic priorities, those 4 to 6 high-level areas. So we do it all the time. It will definitely happen in your case too.
I have one more question. In the case of the interviews of the members of the board and other, when you aggregate, will you be aggregating the data, or will it be so that it's more anonymous?
We will be aggregating the data for sure. Absolutely. We like to give people, we do not attribute anything to an individual. We like to give people sort of the safety of that confidentiality, that they can say whatever they need to say.
Good.
So what we'll do is we'll aggregate the data within the board as a body. We'll aggregate the data with department leadership and staff. We'll aggregate the data from the community. So you can see how the similarities and the differences between those, and then we'll aggregate it across all of that, right?
There's a lot of aggregation.
Lots of aggregation, but
Okay.
that's part of our process and how we present the data back.
Okay.
All
A
right.
lot of aggregation. Okay, thanks.
Aggregation, not aggravation.
That's what I know. I
No,
was
but
thinking
it's
of
better-
that as
I
well.
want
Thank
people
you.
to feel that they can speak very frankly with you.
Yep.
Just in
That's-
case there's something they feel sensitive about.
That's built into our process. We put it in our interview guide, which gets sent to people in advance. We also say it at the beginning of the interview or the focus group that lets people know that we're not attributing to names or roles or positions, that our notes do not get shared with anybody. They're our working notes and they stay at very done. So no one is ever at threat for worrying about something that they said being tied back to them.
All right, very good. Mr. Iqbal. Mo,
Yeah,
can you?
Madam
yes,
Chair,
there you go.
yes, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I appreciate this presentation. My question is the timing of it. We are facing or approaching a financial cliff. And at the time when we have to deal with that, how do we reconcile the strategic planning when we really have a major issue that we have to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of built into this project is the budget alignment piece, but also in that early stage where we're doing the visioning with you as the elected board and with department leaders, talking through what are the possible scenarios that are going to play out given your financial situation, and what can we put in the plan that helps to address that, right? Have it, like I mentioned, one of our we have many local government clients in Oregon that have structural deficits in their budgets because of two measures that passed many years ago, measures 5 and measure 50, and it's never been corrected. And so many of them are facing these serious fiscal crises. And so a number of them have actually identified fiscal sustainability as a strategic priority in their strategic plan with clear goals, strategies, and objectives about how they are going to address sustainability, that, big financial challenge or cliff, as you mentioned.
All right, Mr. Rickle, that was a good question. Yes, Mr. Ethman.
Thank you. This is Cheryl Strathman. As I go around doing my work in the county, one of the things that I find out is that a lot of people don't know all the services that we offer in King County. And I would really love to have that be part of our working force here too, as we work to, communicate with the community and set up meetings and that, to really try to engage people so that they know about us a little more than what they do now.
I love that idea. I can give you an example of a couple of ways that we address that. So in the community forums, we like to have a slide that shows the county services that it provides to the community, so that when people are doing visioning work, which we ask them to do in those forums, they're basing it off of something, right? They're basing it off of a place of knowledge and understanding. The other thing that we are doing, and we're doing this actually with a project that we're conducting for Milwaukee County. It doesn't happen to be a strategic planning project per se, but it is looking at their operations through the lens of their fiscal challenges. And we're doing community listening sessions and interviews. And one thing that we're doing is we're taking that slide out of the slide deck and we're printing it out on a piece of paper that we can lay down on the table, or put up on the screen in a virtual interview, so that if we're interviewing a stakeholder in the community, either one-on-one or as part of a group, whether it's virtual or in person, that they're getting that message of what the county services are before we're asking them to respond to some questions.
Okay, very good. All right, Mr. Gripe, and I think this will be the last one just for timing. No, unless we have other conversation that people want to have. Yes, sir.
One of my colleagues and I were just talking as we come up with good ideas, things that we'd like to add to the report or want included in the report. I mean, we could go on, and you haven't even talked to all 24 of us yet. Is there a point at which we're adding to the cost? And can you tell us if we start making this a much more expensive
Definitely
endeavor?
will. I've been a project manager for most of my career, and I'm 62, so I've been around for a long time, and I've managed some pretty large projects. And so if there's something that starts to border on a change in scope, I'm gonna be talking with Paul. So don't worry about that. But I feel like we have adequate, I know what went into this budget for this project. I built the budget for this project. I feel comfortable that we're gonna have adequate time and space for input. At some point, you got to get focused, right? So the time for you to provide your individual input is when we do your interviews with you. And then if you have some ideas coming out of those interviews, you can email them to us. Then you get together and you get to talk about your ideas together in your board development or your plan development session for the whole board. That's where you start to sift through and try to coalesce around some ideas that you can get consensus agreement on. And then the whole thing's going to come to you in a draft, and that's another opportunity for you to provide some input. Once that draft has been pretty thoroughly discussed in that work session, that's where your cutoff point is. But we've never not on any of our projects, I think, been able to accommodate the elected officials' desire for input. So I'm not worried about that.
I think what is the term in construction, change orders can
Yes.
add on to costs. So
Yep, and we would not do anything that would create that kind of a change to the scope without a discussion with you. And we know that the budget that you have for this project is how you want this project to come in. And it's my job as the project manager to make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you. So we're dealing with a person who's very experienced with fiscal management, which is good. All right, if there's no other questions, we have a bit of a timeline that we have to have. This steering committee or an ad hoc committee has to be approved by the full board at its board meeting in mid-May. So we will be presenting the scope to the executive committee, which is where it would stand at that point. I thought at first that there was going to have to be committee meeting or members already selected for your approval. Obviously, that has changed now because of this conversation, that those members of the 14 members, more or less, of the steering committee will be chosen by Ms. Kennedy. And that recommendation then will come forward to you, but I do not believe that is going to be approved of by May 14th. That seems like a pretty quick two-step. I don't know.
We
Michelle,
already
if you-
have, Madam Chair, we already have
Yes.
a draft steering committee charter.
All right.
So I think that's our, Paul has that. I think we just need to refine it. And then in terms of the selection, we'll take recommendations from the county. I don't feel like I'm in a position to cherry pick, right? Who's on that steering committee? I'll certainly provide recommendations, but I think from my perspective, I want to see sort of an equal representation from the county board, from department leadership, and then some key staff.
All right, so why don't we talk to Paul and then we'll get back to you with this information so that it's become very inclusive and those members who would like to have, and we also then reach out to our elected officials. There will be representation on that. And so if we want to keep this to, you said about 14 people, is that about right? So we just have a number to work with. Oh, Michelle, you've been accidentally, what happened? Michelle, don't talk. There
Can I
you go.
talk
Okay,
now?
that's better now. Okay, very good.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. You know, a sweet spot is around 10 to 15,
10
or
to
I'm sorry,
15,
10 to 12
okay.
members. When it gets to 15, it's a little unruly, but it needs to be robust enough that you've actually got adequate representation from each of those groups. So, you know, since we're talking about 3 groups, maybe 12 is a good number. So you'd have four representatives from each of those groups.
All right. Okay, so that we'll have to work with the board on that, and I think the staff will absolutely self-choose, I would think, and we can make that selection as well. And then we'll reach out to our other elected officials to see who would like to participate in this process and see if 4 of them would like to be part of this with their own workload and their own needs. And perhaps one of their staff members can come as a representative for the elected officials.
And if the elected officials choose not to participate on the steering committee, because that is more of a time commitment, we will absolutely welcome them and include them in the other parts of the process. If they want to participate, they can participate as part of the plan development session that we would do with department directors. They could participate in individual interviews, group interviews, whatever their appetite is and the way in which they would like to engage, we can include them in the process.
All right, so I would like to ask you, we can maybe arrange a meeting with them, a Zoom meeting at everybody's mutual convenience, so you can explain that process to them. And
Sure.
then they can make their decision if they would
Yeah.
like to participate in whatever capacity they feel that they're able to.
Yeah, I'd be happy to give them the same presentation that I provided to you and answer all their questions. And that way, at least they will have all of the information.
We'll all be on the exact same page.
Yep.
So wonderful. Thank you. All right. With no other questions? No, this has been very interesting. We'll be rolling up our sleeves and getting to work. It'll be a busy time for us all.
It will. And I just want to extend appreciation to all of you for your really thoughtful questions. Those were very thoughtful questions. It tells me how seriously you're taking this process, and it is going to be a bit of a lift because you guys haven't had a strategic plan for a long time. But what we like to do and what we pride ourselves in is we try to make the process as easy for you as possible so that it doesn't add to your burden. And so we try to make it easy. We try to do as much of the heavy lifting as we can shoulder. We do need some participation from county staff to help us with some of the logistics, but I really appreciate the amount of attention that the board is giving this, and it'll be a pleasure to work with all of you.
Oh, and I think we're all looking forward to it. We're up to the challenge.
Good.
So may I have a motion and a second? We've finished our discussion to adjourn the meeting.
Roth will make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second, please.
Linder,
What about the other
Already been taken care of?
department heads and?
Oh, well, that was included. It's if needed. So I think
It's part of the
she included that in the discussion.
Thank you.
That was the countywide thing that was.
Its duties as related.
I wanted to make sure.
Aye.
Overview.
Aye.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Have a great